Today we're doing regional press conferences as part of the New York State Sheriff's Association on 10 legislative proposals for the protection of the public and the police. Unfortunately, many politicians and community activists and even some in the media have fostered an attitude toward the police which excuses or even glamorizes resistance to lawful authority. It should be readily apparent to everyone that, with some notable exceptions, most of the recent tragic incidents which resulted in the injury or death of an individual at the hands of the police have begun with the refusal by that individual to comply with a lawful order. When an individual refuses to comply with that lawful order, the police are faced with a choice between walking away from the wrongdoer or taking action. Action often leads to reaction, and escalation begins. Our deputies are trained in de-escalation, but that requires cooperation on both sides. When escalation begets escalation, tragedy can result. A deputy's split-second reaction to a perceived threat may perhaps later be thought to be all wrong by those sitting in their armchairs, under no pressure, under no stress, but these deputies do not often have the luxury of cool reflection before taking those actions. Today we call upon the legislature and the governor to enact the following two proposals in order to re-emphasize the importance of citizen compliance with directives of law enforcement, deputies, and officers. There is a time and a place to question law enforcement's actions, but it's not in the middle of a street when the deputy's under the pressure of trying to bring a situation under control for the safety of the public. The first proposal is resisting arrest, making resisting arrest a Class E felony, which cannot be reduced by plea bargaining, and make it an offense for which a judge could require the posting of bail. The second is failure to retreat. Make this a Class D felony for any person to approach or remain within 25 feet of a police officer engaged in the performance of his or her official duties when such person is ordered by a police officer to halt or retreat and such person fails to immediately do so. Law enforcement has a very difficult job. Most want to do the job right and to go home safely to their families at the end of their shift. Unfortunately, in the current climate of disrespect of the police, again fostered under the words and actions of some politicians and community activists, and some bad actors think they have been given a license to harass and assault police officers with impunity. We call upon the legislature and the governor to enact the following 6 proposals for the protection of police officers who must be kept safe so they can keep our citizens safe. They are the thin blue line between the citizens and the anarchy. Number 3, assault on a police officer. This would increase the level of seriousness by 1 degree for the current crimes pertaining to assault upon a police officer. Number 4, assault in the 2nd degree, causing a peace or police officer physical injury, should become a Class C felony. Aggravated harassment of a police or peace officer, making this a Class D felony for a person to cause or attempt to cause any police officer or peace officer engaged in the performance of his or her official duties to be struck by any substance of object, including but not limited to bottles, rocks, bodily fluids, spittle, urine, seminal fluid, feces, flammable liquids, or other noxious, hazardous, or dangerous substances. Hate crime against a police officer. Make any crime committed against a police officer of his or her status as a police officer a hate crime. Aggravated offering a false accusation against a police officer. Make it a Class D felony to falsely accuse a police officer or peace officer of wrongdoing in the performance of his or her duties and create a private right of civil action for the law enforcement member against the false accuser. Criminal doxing of a police officer or peace officer. Make it a Class D felony to dox a police officer or peace officer because of the law enforcement member's status as a police or peace officer, or to dox any person because of that person's relationship to or affiliation with such police or peace officer. stalking a police officer or peace officer. Make it a Class E felony to follow or surveil a police or peace officer for no legitimate purpose, whether such officer is on or off duty, or to approach within 100 yards of a private residence or place of lodging of a police officer without the consent of said officer, for reasons related to the member's status or service as a police or peace officer, or for the purpose of intimidating the member or the member's family. Many political leaders have endangered the lives of our members, either actively by their inflammatory rhetoric or passively by their failure in the face of unfounded anarchist attacks to speak up in the defense of the great majority of our police officers who consistently serve and sacrifice for all New Yorkers without regard to race. We call upon the legislature and the governor to enact the following two proposals in recognition of the difficult, dangerous job that police officers are asked to perform day in and day out, and to recognize that sad fact that in the performance of that difficult, dangerous job, many police officers and too many police officers have lost their lives serving. A disability and death benefit. Provide a $500,000 benefit for police officers who are seriously disabled or die from injuries incurred in the line of duty, in recognition of the high-risk occupation of being a police officer, in order to provide some measure of security for the future for the officer and his or her family should that member be disabled or killed protecting the public. And lastly, but certainly not least, Police Memorial Day. Make May 15th a state holiday in honor of the more than 1,500 police officers who have died in the line of duty in New York, and require the State Division of Criminal Justice Services to annually recognize and organize a fitting memorial ceremony at the Police Memorial Wall at the Empire State Plaza in Albany on Monday, falling closest to May 15th, and require the governor to appear in person at such ceremony to say aloud, in tribute, the names of the police officers who died during the previous year from injuries occurred in the line of duty protecting New Yorkers.